So every other Tuesday, we post on YouTube a response to the blog from the previous week. Now, the previous week continued season 4 of Gen Z in a Post-World Everything, and we were in the blog discussing a compelling argument for good and evil and the existence of a loving God. How do you do that? Well, the blog began with a rather edgy story that's actually from another academic. The story goes that a Jewish survivor of the Holocaust died, and he went to heaven. And he met God at the pearly gates, and he threw his arms around God and poured his heart out to God and told him all about the terror and horror of the Holocaust. And then God responded and said, "I don't understand what you're saying." And the Jewish man said, "Well, you would if you were there." Now, this is no joke. This is an actual dilemma that we face when discussing things with Gen Z. How do you create a compelling argument for good and evil and the existence of a loving God at the same time? And of course, God was there in the Holocaust, but that's for another day. And so we began to discuss the tension between good, evil, and the existence of a loving God. And the responses we got from the blog, again, we put into 3 different categories. And I want to use this video as a response to the 3 different categories. So the first category was captured by one of my former students who was reminded when he read the blog, so he said, of things that he learned in one of my classes, that there are things that we know, there are things that we will know if we work hard and study, and there are things that we will never know. Now, things that we know come to us very, very quickly. We don't have to work hard for them. Things that we will know, we do have to work hard. We have to dig, we have to study, we have to think, we have to discuss. But there is that third category where we will never know. For instance, regarding the third category, my older brother died at the age of 47 of brain cancer. I don't know why that happened. He left behind 2 daughters, beautiful girls. I still don't know why that had to happen, but I am assured that my brother is with God in eternity, and I am also assured that God was with him. But I don't know why it happened. That's something that I will only know when I get into eternity myself. So understanding a compelling argument for good, evil, and a loving God, we can say, well, there are things that we do know, there are things that we will know with hard work and study, and there are things that we will never know. Now that brings to us a balance in our thinking about a compelling argument for the existence of good, evil, and a loving God. The second category of questions that came in was captured by another one of my former students, and she began to discuss, well, why does a Christian expect a non-Christian or an atheist, an agnostic, or a deist or a theist or anything but a Christian? Why does a Christian expect a non-Christian to act and think and believe like a Christian? If that is the case, then offense is quickly given and offense is quickly taken. But if we stop and just consider the other, what do they believe? What is their worldview? What is their understanding of life? When we take time to listen, we give less offense and we take less offense. It's a simple way of thinking when it comes to developing this compelling argument for the existence of good and evil and a loving God. Hearing different perspectives. How about we hear the perspective of the Hindu and the Sikh and the Buddhist? How about we hear the perspective of the Muslim and the person who considers themselves spiritual but not religious at all? How come we struggle with these things when, if we're all made in the image and likeness of God, each person has a valid perspective? Now, of course, as a Christian, I believe in what the Bible tells me, and I believe that is truth. But I must not assume that everyone I meet believes the same thing. But I must listen, I must perceive, I must understand, and take into consideration the other person's perspective. The third category was again from one of my former students, and she began to describe absolute truth that without absolute truth, then any action we take, any human action we take, can be justified. So in its extreme, we take another life and we end up justifying it. Well, that's wrong. For it to be wrong, there must be absolute truth. I cannot take what belongs to you, and you cannot take what belongs to me without each other's permission. If we do, then that is theft. Therefore, there must be absolute truth. The list is endless. And one of my former students is absolutely correct that you must have absolute truth in place for there to be law, for there to be order. I don't mean religious law, but the law that tells us this is right and this is wrong. A moral compass, if you wish. Without absolute truth, all we're left with is relative truth. Whatever is truth to you might not be true to me, and vice versa. Therefore, we begin to justify not only our own behavior and actions, but we can even start to hate the other because they behave in a different manner. It's another way of approaching this argument of the existence of good and evil and a loving God. You know, when you read the Gospels, Jesus challenged business as usual in politics, business as usual in religion, and business as usual in business. Jesus challenged these things, and I believe we are living in a day where clear and fresh and knowledgeable and thinking voices are needed to shed light onto some of the dilemmas that we face today. Well, I trust that you have enjoyed this brief video, which captures 3 primary categories or questions or statements that are a response to a weekly blog. If you're enjoying it, why don't you subscribe to this channel, and why don't you look us up on Instagram? So until we see you again, thank you so much for giving me your time to listen to this video. Thank you.